Hey there, Pokemon trainer! How's it going? Minebuild here, and today I'm going to show you how to use Butterfree in competitive battles. If you're into strategy and want to step up your competitive Pokemon game, stick with me in this video. I'll break down my analysis of this awesome Pokemon and highlight the best moves to get the most out of it in single battles. And hey, I want to hear from you too. What moveset would you use on Butterfree? Drop your suggestions in the comments. If you enjoy this competitive Pokemon analysis, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support the Minebuild channel. It really helps the channel grow on the platform. And if you love Pokemon and also play Minecraft, stick around until the end. I've put together a playlist with amazing Pokemon builds in Minecraft, all created by me. Now, let's get started and make Butterfree shine in battles. Butterfree made its debut in the Kanto region as Pokemon number 12 in the National Dex. It evolves from Caterpie, the first stage, to Metapod, the second stage, and finally into Butterfree, its fully evolved form. It's a bug and flying type, a combo that gives it some clear strengths and weaknesses in competitive battles. According to the Pokédex, Butterfree stands at 1.1 meters tall and weighs 32 kilograms. Its total base stats add up to 395, spread across HP, 60, attack, 45, defense, 50, special attack, 90, special defense, 80, and speed, 70. Alright, let's talk about Butterfree's abilities, because this is where things actually get interesting. Butterfree has two very different options. First, the standard ability, Compound Eyes. This ability boosts the accuracy of Butterfree's moves by 30%. And that sounds amazing at first glance, but there's a catch. It only matters on moves that don't already have 100% accuracy. If a move is already perfectly accurate, Compound Eyes does nothing. Now here's where it gets good. The best move that really takes advantage of this ability is the flying stab move Hurricane. Hurricane normally has 70% accuracy, which is risky in singles. But with Compound Eyes, that jumps up to 91%. That means instead of missing 30% of the time, you're now missing only 9% of the time. That's a massive consistency boost. The problem? Butterfree's move pool doesn't have many strong, low accuracy attacks that truly benefit from this ability. And even with the boost, Hurricane can still miss. In competitive singles, reliability is everything, and 9% can still cost you a game. Now let's talk about the hidden ability, Tinted Lens. This one is completely different. Tinted Lens doubles the power of moves that are not very effective. So if your opponent normally resists your move and takes 50% damage, now they take neutral damage instead. And if they would normally take only 25% damage, now they take 50%. What this means in practice is that Butterfree's bug and flying type stab moves become much harder to switch into. Pokemon that would normally wall you because of resistance suddenly don't feel safe anymore. Instead of trying to fix accuracy, Tinted Lens fixes matchups. It turns resisted hits into real damage, and it makes Butterfree far more threatening offensively. Going back to Butterfree's base stats. Butterfree is extremely weak. Its HP is low, which already limits how much punishment it can take. Its special defense is decent, not great, but usable. The real problem is its physical defense. It's terrible. On the physical side, Butterfree folds very easily. Strong physical attackers will almost always threaten to knock it out in one hit. This is not a Pokemon that can switch in freely or tank damage. Its speed is also underwhelming. It's not fast enough to naturally outspeed most offensive threats in the metagame, which means if you try to attack immediately, you're often getting hit first. And its attack stat is completely unusable. You will never run physical sets on Butterfree. Everything about this Pokemon points in one direction, special setup sweeper or nothing. Because of these limitations, Butterfree absolutely depends on setup to function. Without boosting, it simply doesn't have the stats to compete. Unfortunately, it has access to Quiver Dance, which is exactly what it needs. In one turn, Quiver Dance boosts its special attack, special defense, and speed. That single move fixes its speed issue, increases its damage output significantly, and even gives it a bit more special bulk to survive certain hits. But here's the critical part: in order to set up, Butterfree needs to survive at least one attack. And with stats this fragile, that's never guaranteed. That's why item choice becomes so important. Focus Sash is often the safest option, because it guarantees you live one hit at full HP, allowing you to get at least one Quiver Dance off. For a Pokemon this frail, that reliability can be the difference between sweeping and doing absolutely nothing. On the other hand, there's Heavy Duty Boots. Butterfree is 4x weak to rock, which means Stealth Rock removes 50% of its HP the moment it switches in. So overall, Butterfree is a high-risk setup Pokemon. It has very poor natural bulk, mediocre speed, and no physical presence. It needs Quiver Dance to become threatening, and it needs the right item support to even get that chance. Butterfree takes 4x damage from Rock-type moves. That alone is a massive liability in singles, especially because of Stealth Rock. That's brutal for a Pokemon that already struggles with bulk. On top of that, it also takes 2x damage from Fire, Electric, Ice, and Flying-type moves. Against Normal, Water, Poison, Psychic, Ghost, Dragon, Dark, Steel, and Fairy types, Butterfree takes neutral damage. On the positive side, there are some useful resistances. Butterfree is immune to Ground-type moves thanks to its Flying typing. It also has a 4x resistance to Grass and Fighting-type moves. In addition, it resists Bug-type moves by 2x. So overall, Butterfree has 5 weaknesses, including one extremely dangerous 4x weakness to Rock. It has 1 immunity, 2 strong 4x resistances, and 1 2x resistance. It becomes evident, when analyzing its weaknesses and base stats, that Butterfree was not designed to be a defensive or support Pokemon, leaving only a role as a special attacker. Offensively, Butterfree deals super effective damage against Grass, Fighting, Psychic, Bug, and Dark types. Against Normal, Fire, Water, Electric, Ice, Poison, Ground, Flying, Rock, Ghost, Dragon, and Fairy types, it deals neutral damage. However, both of Butterfree's stab types, Bug and Flying, deal only half damage to Steel types. But if we use the ability Tinted Lens and the opposing Pokemon is a pure Steel type, both Bug and Flying type moves will deal neutral damage instead. Alright, let's take a look at the best move options I've selected. First, we have Hurricane, a Flying type special attack, stab, with 110 base power and 70% accuracy. As mentioned before, if you use Compound Eyes, that accuracy jumps to 91%. Even then, there's still a small chance to miss. If you're using Tinted Lens, the accuracy stays at 70%. Another important detail is that in rain, Hurricane becomes 100% accurate. Under Sunny Day, however, its accuracy drops to 50%. So if you don't want to run Compound Eyes, you can absolutely use Tinted Lens instead, especially on a team where another Pokemon sets up rain. You're not locked into one ability if your team supports a different approach. Next, we have Air Slash, another Flying type special attack, stab, with 75 base power and 95% accuracy. With Compound Eyes, that accuracy reaches 100%. Still, it's hard to justify using Compound Eyes just for Air Slash when Hurricane is clearly stronger. Air Slash does have a 30% chance to flinch the opponent. The main option is Bug Buzz, Bug-type special attack, stab, 90 base power. It's one of Butterfree's strongest Bug-type attacks and has a 10% chance to lower the opponent's special defense by 1 stage, which is a 33.3% reduction. We have Quiver Dance, a Bug-type status move that is absolutely essential. This is the move that makes Butterfree viable. It boosts special attack, special defense, and speed by 50% each. Without this move, Butterfree simply doesn't function as a serious threat. For coverage and recovery, there's Giga Drain, a Grass-type special attack with 75 base power. It restores 50% of the damage dealt as HP. This is one of the few reliable ways Butterfree can recover health. After surviving on 1 HP with Focus Sash and setting up Quiver Dance, Giga Drain can help restore a significant amount of HP and extend your sweep. There's also Sleep Powder, a grass-type status move with 75% accuracy. With Compound Eyes, that accuracy increases to 97.5%, which is almost perfect, though it can still miss. This move allows you to put an opponent to sleep, giving you a free turn to set up Quiver Dance or switch to another Pokemon safely. For Fairy-type coverage, we have Draining Kiss. It works similarly to Giga Drain, restoring 75% of the damage dealt as HP. However, its base power is only 50, so it's weaker offensively but recovers more health. For Psychic-type coverage, there's Psychic, with 90 base power and a 10% chance to lower the opponent's special defense by 1 stage. And finally, for Ghost-type coverage, Shadow Ball, with 80 base power and a 20% chance to lower the opponent's special defense by 1 stage. In my opinion, these are the best move options available for Butterfree. Next, we'll go over what I consider to be the best overall moveset to use on it. For Butterfree, I found that only one type of moveset really makes sense. It's very clear that Butterfree's role is to be a special offensive Pokemon. There's no real way around that. Trying to force it into something else just doesn't work. For the EV spread, I maximized special attack and speed. That's mandatory. Butterfree needs to hit as hard as possible and become fast enough to sweep after a boost. The remaining investment went into special defense. It doesn't make sense to dump the leftover into defense, because you never want to take physical hits in the first place. Its physical bulk is terrible. As for IVs, they can all be perfect at 31. You can leave attack at 0 if you want, but it's not mandatory since you're not using it anyway. The only physical move that could justify caring about attack would be U-turn, purely for pivoting purposes, but that's a very niche option on this kind of set. There's also an important detail regarding HP. Because Butterfree is 4x weak to Rock, Stealth Rock removes 50% of its HP on switch in. If Butterfree's HP is an even number, it will lose exactly half the first time it enters. If it switches out and comes back in, it loses the other half and faints immediately. That means it effectively survives only 2 entries. If the HP number is odd, however, it can technically survive 1 additional switch in. So ideally, you want Butterfree's HP stat to be odd to maximize its longevity against Stealth Rock. The chosen nature is Timid, which boosts speed and lowers attack. Lowering attack doesn't matter because you're not using physical moves. With a Timid nature and perfect IVs at level 100, Butterfree reaches 262 speed. After 1 Quiver Dance, which boosts speed by 50%, that jumps to 393. At that point, only a few faster threats can still outspeed it, and that makes a huge difference in practice. That's why Timid is the correct choice here. For the ability, I chose Tinted Lens. The goal is to remove resistances. Moves that would normally deal half damage now deal neutral damage, and moves that would deal 1/4 damage now deal half. That's far more valuable offensively than Compound Eyes in this specific set, since Compound Eyes would mainly benefit Hurricane. I'd rather keep Hurricane at 70% accuracy and, if possible, use Butterfree on a team where another Pokemon sets up Rain to guarantee Hurricane hits. The item choice is Focus Sash, though Heavy Duty Boots is also viable. Focus Sash guarantees that you survive at least 1 hit and get a Quiver Dance off as long as there are no entry hazards on the field. If hazards are up and Butterfree loses HP upon switching in, the Focus Sash breaks immediately. That's the risk you have to manage. The moveset itself is straightforward. Hurricane is your main flying-type stab, Bug Buzz as your secondary stab, Giga Drain for recovery and coverage, and Quiver Dance as the essential setup move. That's the most consistent and effective way to run Butterfree as a special sweeper. Let's take a look at some other moves Butterfree can learn, at least up through Pokemon Sword and Shield and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Since starting in Generation 9, Butterfree hasn't reappeared in the main games. On the physical side, there's really only one move worth mentioning, U-turn. It's a bug-type stab move with 70 base power that allows you to switch out after dealing damage. The utility is obvious, you hit and pivot. But outside of that, I don't recommend physical moves on Butterfree. Its attack stat is simply too low to justify investing in that direction. Looking at additional special attacks that weren't included in the best moves, one option is Energy Ball. It's a grass-type move with 90 base power and a 10% chance to lower the opponent's special defense by 1 stage. It's stronger than Giga Drain, so if you prefer raw damage over recovery, Energy Ball can replace it. Another move is Pollen Puff, a bug-type special attack, stab, with 90 base power. In singles, it's generally inferior to Bug Buzz. However, in double battles, it becomes interesting because if you target your partner, it heals them for 50% of their HP instead of dealing damage. That's where the move shines. In singles, though, Bug Buzz is the better choice. There's also Solar Beam, a grass-type move with 120 base power. Normally, it requires 2 turns, 1 to charge and 1 to attack. Under Sunlight, it fires in a single turn. The issue is that running Sun support on Butterfree is questionable. Butterfree is weak to Fire-type moves, which are boosted in Sun, making it even more vulnerable. On top of that, if you're using Hurricane, its accuracy drops to 50% under Sun. So Solar Beam doesn't synergize well with Butterfree's overall game plan. Finally, let's look at the status move options. Outside of Quiver Dance, which is by far the best and most important one, there are a few other possibilities you could consider. One option is Roost, a flying-type status move that restores 50% of Butterfree's HP. During the turn you use Roost, Butterfree temporarily loses its flying typing, and then regains it on the following turn. There's also Toxic, a poison-type status move with 90% accuracy. If you use Compound Eyes, that accuracy becomes 100%. Toxic badly poisons the target, meaning the damage increases every turn. In combination with Toxic, you could run Protect, a normal-type status move that blocks attacks for 1 turn. This guarantees at least 1 extra turn of poison damage and can help stall for incremental chip. That said, outside of these options, there aren't many status moves that truly add meaningful value to Butterfree. Its role is clearly centered around Quiver Dance and Offensive Pressure. Everything else is secondary and highly situational. Now we wait for Generation 10 to see if Butterfree gets new tools and maybe opens up new ways to be used in battle. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.